Hi, today we're going to be doing a show that's going to spotlight one of our unsung heroes. She was a wonderful woman, and we're going to be talking a lot about what she did. Her name is Nadia Qazi, and we're going to be talking with her sister Farah Qazi about her life and memories. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
I think that most of the people in this area may have met her because she was a pretty shining light.
She was. She was a community leader and a beacon for so many people. A lot of people, we were surprised at just how many lives she touched. You know, it's kind of the irony of any situation. Nadia was my younger sister, and many times, although she passed very suddenly, almost 2 years ago now, many times you don't realize just what an impact a person has until they're gone. And so, although we knew that she was tremendously special, we didn't realize how many people she had touched until they started telling us afterwards.
Well, you know, I've known your father, Dr. Qazi, since he was an intern at Christ Hospital when I was a nurse there. And she came up to me one day in Oak Brook, and she had seen him on the TV show with me prior to that. And she said, I have to introduce myself because, you know, my father wouldn't forgive me if I didn't or something.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah,
I didn't know that.
Out of nowhere. I mean, she was a beautiful girl, and I had never met her, of course, before. So tell us from the beginning what started with her life. Or let's talk about what happened to her first, because it was pretty shocking.
It was. Nadia, like I said, I'm the oldest of 5 kids. Nadia was the second youngest in our family. Quite literally the heart of our family. She was unbelievably kind and generous and caring and loving. We always said she was the best of all of us. She went out to dinner with my dad and suddenly had cardiac arrest and passed away in a restaurant. And I was the only one who was kind of in town at that time, so I tried to rush to her, but I wasn't able to spend any quality time with her before she passed. I think, you know, grief in general and loss in general is so tremendously hard, and there's so many different stages to it, but I have found in my personal experience that when you don't have the chance to say goodbye, it becomes even more, sometimes even more jarring, because this was a healthy, vivacious, charming, tremendously driven and outgoing person who had made plans with me to take the kids swimming later on and to go out and to go to parks and all these things, and suddenly to have that cut short abruptly was very, very shocking for all of us.
Well, when God makes a decision that he wants somebody that bad, and she was so wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, that's what people say, right? So yeah, I mean,
and you know, so many people have to suffer for a length of time.
Yeah.
People often say they wish they could go like that, but it's harder on everyone else when they
I
go
say
like
that too.
Yeah.
I said, you know, you always kind of pray and hope for an easy, quick, passing. But for the people that are left behind, it's not an easy thing at all.
Very hard.
It's very, very tough.
Did you find out exactly what caused it?
No, I mean, we don't know.
Yeah.
It's all we know is a sudden cardiac arrest. And
she was what,
36.
36 years old.
Yeah. And after that, of course, we started to become even more in tune to so many stories of young people who had passed away suddenly, and so we have this affinity for people that are, dealing with this loss. But I think one of the things that compels us to talk about her, and then also about the experience, is that it's such a it's a journey of life that we all have to go through, and yet it's not very well spoken of. It's not something that people talk too much about, and many times they don't know how to address it or how to handle it. And so I think, if anything is a learning experience, losing a loved one would be that experience.
Well, we talked about that for a minute on the phone about grief, and I said the definition that I read of it is grief with love with nowhere to go.
Yeah, and after you and I talked, because I told you that I saw it in a Marvel movie, and I thought, wow, that was really, really deep for a Marvel movie. But then after that, I read something, and it said it's not that it doesn't have anywhere to go; it's that it has everywhere to go, except for the one person that you're.
Well, and when my husband passed, I said he's nowhere but everywhere. He's everywhere but nowhere.
Yeah. I had read this quote. One of the things that has been really comforting during that time is just reading poetry and quotes and kind of these support groups and things like that of people that are writing down their feelings. And I read this thing that says, I travel the world searching for traces of you, and you were nowhere to be found, and everywhere to be found at the same time. So I thought that's exactly how it is. Every single place that I go to, I remember her and I think of her and she has a place in it, and yet she's not there. So it is a constant inner battle to continue and to keep going and to keep, honoring
Well,
her.
I don't know if you've had the experience, but with my husband passing, I mean, there's been times when I'm in the house where I swear I put something down here and then I find it somewhere else, and I go, I guess you're still here. 'Cause you're moving things around on me.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think people talk about all these different signs and signals and things like that maybe you get from your loved one. I think a lot of we get comfort sometimes in seeing her in our dreams, and just places that she's been to and people that she was friends with and that
Well,
loved
they
her.
say that that's them trying to contact you.
Yeah, that's exactly. And also, it's interesting because a lot of times people think that when somebody is grieving that you shouldn't mention that person's name or you shouldn't talk about them. And I have found the exact opposite. I feel like you should give a person a space to talk about their loved one because that was such a huge, important part of their life.
Right.
And if you ignore it, it's almost as if you're ignoring that huge void that they now
No,
have.
I agree, and I think it's very satisfying when other people that knew my husband or
Yeah,
knew her
exactly. It's
talk
very
about,
comforting, right?
know.
So I think people sometimes are scared. So if people are trying to help others that are grieving, I would say if that's you, give your person space to talk about their loved one. I think there's nothing more poignant than that. In the chaos of the few days that happened after she had passed away, I was pleasantly surprised and touched by the outpouring of love and support that I received from me personally, from my own friends, and my family collectively, from our friends and community members. And I remember I had a couple of friends who came and they literally pulled me to a sofa and sat me down and said, "No, let's talk about her. Tell me about her." And I just thought that was such a beautiful gift to give somebody when they're already, their entire world has just kind of crumbled before them, and you're giving that opportunity for them to talk about
Now,
their
in
pain.
your religion, what happens when someone passes? What type of funeral?
We have, the funeral usually happens really quickly afterwards, and it is an obligation upon Muslims that know about it for them to attend the funeral. So many times people will come, take off time from work. They take it very seriously. And in Nadia's case, we were very lucky. We had almost 1,000 people show up at her funeral,
Wow.
which is when we realized just what an impactful life she had.
Yeah.
I think more importantly than the days afterwards, I think the way that she lived her life is so tremendously inspirational, and that's why I wanted to talk about it, because she was a lifelong student. She continuously studied. She continuously worked. She went to some of the most prestigious universities. So she went to Northwestern and University of Chicago, and she was accepted into a program at Stanford. She was unbelievably brilliant. And her writing was just incredible. She would write these thesis papers, and actually, even after she passed, I've had professors come to me and say, "You have to get these things published," because she was really, her mind was just so sharp. And but more than that, she was also just one of those people, like you and I were talking, like one of those people that when you talk about how she came and introduced herself, she just was like a ray of sunshine all the time. So she was very, very aware of very empathetic and very aware of making other people feel welcome and loved at all times. There was never a social gathering or an outing or anything in which you wouldn't see that she would be trying to embrace somebody or trying to bring them, into the fold, or she saw that somebody was kind of on the fringes, she would make sure that they would feel included. I think that's a really rare quality for people
When was
to
her
have.
birthday?
In October 30th.
Oh, the day before mine.
Oh, really?
She was on
You're a Halloween
Eve.
baby.
Yeah, she was Halloween Eve.
Yeah. So she, she studied, and then she actually found her passion in teaching. So she ended up being a teacher for many years, and her kids absolutely loved her. They would come running down the hallway and give her these huge, bear hugs. Now these hugs were legendary because they were kind of like these bone-crushing hugs that she would lift up my kids and just really, really envelop them in her hugs. She was tremendously passionate about so many causes. So she would be, passionate about human rights. For example, if she heard about suffering that was going around in the world, or even like, for example, like this Turkey earthquake, she would have been the first one to be trying to figure out how we can help and what we can do, and learning about it and teaching other people about it. So these are all things that we terribly miss now because she was such a force of nature for us.
Well, your father said that she even did that at home.
Yes.
Whenever anything needed to be done, anybody
Yes.
needed to be contacted. Or
Yeah, I
anything.
mean, she was just, that's the thing, that she was just the type of person that kept all of us together. She was our glue. So she was constantly talking to all of us, then she would communicate with us. She was making the plans. She would make sure that all of us felt included in those plans. So really, really a rare and unique personality. And I always, I joke around that it's always the ones that are so vivacious and so energetic and so full of life that when they're gone, that loss is so deep that it's harder for you to figure out how to function without that kind of person that's so pivotal in your life
Right.
before. So, but yeah, I mean, we had she. I'm happy that in her short life she was commended and lauded for all of her achievements. She received many, many awards.
What are these?
These are, she worked a lot in community service. She was tremendously passionate about giving back to the communities, to the point that sometimes I would actually have conversations with her and tell her, you need to take better care of yourself, because she would get so involved in her projects. But she had actually read an article about the Sisterhood of Salam Shalom, and she thought it was the most brilliant idea, because it was a organization that was developed by a Jewish and a Muslim women, so that they could create fostering of a relationship between the two. Centuries old divide, and try to bridge that divide. And so she loved it, and she contacted the author, and then contacted the leader of the organization, and very quickly became the leader for the Chicago region. With her efforts, at a very short amount of time, they increased their membership. They ended up having factions of the group throughout the Chicagoland area. She spoke at different events. She was unbelievably, tirelessly passionate about fostering interfaith discussion, community development, just making sure that people were always cohesive and blended together. So because of that, she ended up getting an award for her efforts, because she quite literally had driven their membership and really spearheaded a lot of their projects. And then she did the same for any other organization that she worked for. So she worked very tirelessly for a faith club that was local, and she met a bunch of women from a local church, and they were all older than her, and they always laughed, because they said, we saw this really young person in our introductory group, and we thought maybe she's lost or what's going on. And it turned out that because she was very interested in interfaith work, she ended up helping them develop this faith club. And so she recruited other people of different faiths, and they all came together, and they started a book club, and they would have potlucks, and they would have monthly meetings and different talks and things like that. So just unbelievably passionate and unbelievably determined to leave an impact on the world, which I'm happy that she was able to do, because I think
Maybe
we
it has
see
something
it.
to do with our birthdays, because somebody told somebody the other day that I can get people to do what nobody else can, and it sounds like she did that every day.
Yeah. I mean, she really did. She spent every day trying to figure out a way to make an impact, and I think it's a beautiful way to live, and it's something that most people cannot say. But she wanted to make an impact in her students and her kids, whether it was my own children, her nieces and nephews.
She teach?
She taught elementary school. And then she did some student teaching as well in high school and other places, but mostly her passion was with elementary kids. She loved kids, so she was really very, very, very excited to be in the classroom with them all the time.
What's the other award? Is that another award?
That's for her teaching, actually. So she actually got many awards for teaching. Because she just was so impactful with her kids. In fact, she actually initially started off with handling some special needs children. And the principal had recognized her efforts, because he realized just what a difference she was making. She was unfailingly patient and very, very, very creative. So when she realized that, a problem could not be solved in the traditional way, she would always come up with another solution. So she was exactly the type of person that would be able to develop a curriculum for a special needs child, for example, or any sort of challenge that was put her way. She would try to find another way, another solution. And I thought that was something I always admired that about her, because she was tireless in her efforts. Whatever project she gave, she would give it 150%.
And what order did you say she was in?
Second youngest.
She was second youngest.
Yeah.
And is the youngest a boy or a girl?
Girl.
A girl too, also.
Yeah, they were 1 year apart. Yeah. So. One of the things that I think that's tremendously important about Nadia is that she loved education. She loved women's rights. She constantly fought for justice and human rights in general. And so very shortly after she passed away, we realized, her siblings and I, that we needed to continue that legacy in some way. So we very quickly, in the midst of this chaos and grief, created an organization in her name, and it's called the Qazi Family Foundation. And then we created a scholarship, the Nadia Qazi Scholarship. And we just recently managed to give the recipient $5,000, the first recipient of it. It's a wonderfully sweet and driven and smart and brilliant young woman who's now going to college here in Chicago. And
What are the qualifications?
The qualifications is that you have to be a young woman who has some financial need and can write 3 essays that we have provided. And of those essays, you will talk about a community project that you would like to take on, and some sort of good deed or something that has happened in your past that has made an impact on you. And we had some amazing quality candidates, some people who had gone through the foster care system. This recipient had actually done that. Some who have lived in single family homes, others who have just struggled maybe with mental health or physical health. And it was really hard for us to choose one, but we chose this person, and she has been incredible, and she's been documenting her journey. So if you go onto our website, you can see her her journey.
What is your website?
It's called the Qazi Family Foundation, so QAZI Family Foundation.org. And it's fantastic. So if there's a way that we can somehow give back in Nadia's name, that's our goal, to do that.
So what is this recipient going to do?
So this money helps her to essentially go to college when maybe she wouldn't have been able to otherwise. And we actually give the gift directly to the college, and then she's able to use it towards her semester. But on top of that, she chronicles her journey and shows whatever her project was, her community service project. She'll show us, what she's about to do with that.
And what is hers?
And hers was a really interesting one, because she had a whole bunch of different things that she wanted to do. And one of them was that she wants, because she was in the foster care system as well, so she wants to be able to create a mentorship program for the foster kids as well. And I just thought it was beautiful. It was something that Nadia would have absolutely loved.
I have a foster brother that my parents took when he was 4 weeks old.
Oh, wow.
And he happens to be albino.
Wow.
But when you look at him, you wouldn't necessarily think that, well, especially now that he's older. He has white hair, but his eyes are more purple than pink, And they told my parents that he probably wouldn't live past 20, and he should go to a special school for special needs. And he was so smart that my father said, no, he doesn't need it. He asked him, and he said, do you want to do that? And he said, no. And now he's a law professor.
Oh, my gosh.
He teaches ethics. I don't know if that's such a good topic for him, because he was a brat as a kid. But, I mean, he's 60 years old.
Yeah.
So he definitely lived past 20.
Wow. Well, probably because he got the support that he needed, right?
Yeah.
Because I think that's a huge thing. And that's the type of story that Nadia would have loved. Like, she loved those type of stories of an underdog that would accomplish things and whatever. And so when we wanted to create this foundation and this scholarship, we wanted to make sure that we honored all of her visions. These were all things that she absolutely loved doing. Providing an opportunity for people to get educated was something that she was really passionate about too.
Well, and I feared with him because he's legally blind. And he was the first person ever to get his law degree and his PhD in philosophy in the same 3 years at Georgetown.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, he's a bit of a genius.
Yeah.
Too. But I used to fear, that people might not date him because of it. Or he wouldn't get to travel, or he wouldn't get a big job or something. He's lived all over the United States. He's been married
had a
more
full
than
life.
once. Yeah, he's definitely done everything we didn't expect.
Yeah.
But yes, it's interesting. People
Yeah.
with special needs.
I think in general, one of the things that we've learned, and we've learned through Nadia's work, because she did so much work for underprivileged communities, is that people just really need a little bit of a boost, and then they can really accomplish all that they are desiring. And the makeup of our world, unfortunately, is that some people are advantaged and some people are disadvantaged. And the goal of the people that have the advantage is to reach behind them and to lift that disadvantaged community up. And Nadia firmly believed in that. So she not only did she dream of things, but she was, doing those things as well. And if she was succeeding, she wanted everybody else to succeed as well. And so that's why we thought the foundation and the scholarship was fantastic, because that was her entire ethos for life, was not only should I be, sitting in this position, but other people should also be able to do it as well. And
Well, I guess heaven needed another angel.
yeah, I guess so.
But I know it has to be very hard on you and harder on your parents because, people say that parents, the hardest thing in the world is to lose a child.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is. Of course it is. I think, like I said, every loss is different, and I think sometimes people don't pay attention to just how earth-shattering a loss can be, whether it's a sibling, a child, a parent. All of those things are they're just so intertwined within the fabric of our own lives, these people, that it's very difficult for you to then distinguish and to be able to live apart from them.
And it's so far-reaching. And your father is such a wonderful doctor. I mean, I worked with him for years, and I know he's a wonderful doctor. And I mean, I know this had to be a tremendous shock to him when it happened.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's trauma, right? So it's a traumatic experience for all who are going through it. And I think one of the things that I have found is that your circle becomes maybe tighter and smaller, but it becomes much more meaningful as well. The people that support you during that time and quite literally hold you up during that time in that community, that then becomes your people for the rest of your life, because it's very hard sometimes for you to know how to help somebody who's grieving, but to simply show up and to be there. And in our case, we had people that brought us food, and they comforted us, and they took care of our kids, or whatever they were doing. The small little touches of kindness that were there, those are things that we will never forget.
Right.
So it is a very beautiful way for you to honor another person and to honor a person's friendship.
But we need to talk about you for 1 minute, so
Okay.
people know what you do.
Okay. I'm an immigration and human rights lawyer. I do a lot of cases for underprivileged immigrant communities, specifically for the Latino community and those who have been undocumented for many years. And then we try to find solutions for them so that they can stay here legally and also be able to pursue their rights without any sort of repercussions that they might think might occur or affect their immigration
Are you
status.
talking about the kids that are here that...
Yeah, kids that are here, or families that have been, kind of ripped apart, or a lot of times families that come across the border. Sometimes only one parent will come across the border and another parent is still sitting in another country. So we spend a great deal of our energy in our firm to reunite those families and to make sure that people
But
can
they
live
don't have much money.
safely. Well, some of them do and some of them don't.
Yeah.
But regardless, whatever we can do, that's the goal, is to help them as much as possible. Again, I think the idea of helping underrepresented communities kind of goes throughout an entire family. So with Nadia, with me, with all of us, those are the type of discussions that we would have a lot. We would have a lot of talks about the injustices in the world and what we can do personally to fix them. It was something that I miss about my conversations with Nadia, is because she and I would talk for hours sometimes about different solutions and different problems. So I think it's an important thing for you to find a topic and then pursue that topic and decide that you're going to try to do something or devise a solution to it.
What happened? I asked you about her. Did she know? What was she like growing up, though, when she was younger? Like, I started out quiet, and I ended up not quiet. Was she quiet?
No, she wasn't quiet.
No?
She was super creative and imaginative, and she was rambunctious, and she was just like the life of the party. She always wanted to do something. So she was always, we always laughed at her. We're like, she always wanted an activity or a project. Really, really creative. So she would put on these plays, and she would put on costumes, and she would get all of us to do these shows and plays with her. We would always go outside. We would, we didn't have a tree house, but we would pretend that we had a tree house. So she would be climbing trees. She read a lot of books. Her and I were both bookworms, so we just read a lot. So our summers were spent just, lying around reading and discussing books. So, and she kind of stayed that way. The amazing thing about Nadia is that she managed to keep that childlike energy throughout her entire life. And it's part of the reason why my sister's kids just absolutely adored her, because she was just like
One of the kids.
Yeah, she was like one of the kids, and she was just as energetic as they were. So if they wanted to do a scavenger hunt, she would be doing it with them. If they wanted to play hide and seek, she'd be the first one to go and hide. It was fun for them, and fun for us, because she was the fun aunt. She was the cool fun aunt that goes, did everything, and I didn't have to worry about entertaining my kids because she would do that for us.
Yeah, I like doing that with my nieces and nephews
Yeah,
too.
yeah. So I think in terms of, in terms of her legacy, I think she left behind a legacy of kindness and in love and just compassion for others. Something that I don't think I will ever see again in my life, to have somebody with such an open and generous and kind heart and completely untainted in this childlike spirit, very, very innocent in that she would think that everyone was inherently good. And she always sought to see the goodness in every single person. So it's things like that you read about, but you don't actually get to see. And she was, the love incarnate. She was literally the embodiment of love and kindness.
They say you shouldn't count your life by years, but by friends, and it sounded like she had a very long life that way.
Yeah, and by how you make other people feel, right? They say that the idea is not what you've accomplished, but how you make other people feel. And if that's the case, then she definitely won in life, because I don't think there was a single person that could say that they didn't feel warmth and love when they were around her.
And I'm sure she's here with us today. I do believe that they're around.
Yeah.
And like I said, they're nowhere but everywhere. The only one good thing, if you could say there's a good thing, is then they're with you everywhere you go.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? I kind of thought about that too. Like, I was like, maybe that's a comforting thought, that now, she's always around.
You could talk to her anywhere.
Anywhere.
Now, because you're not
I mean, it's a one-way
separated by
conversation,
distance.
but at least.
I don't know about that. I think they send messages.
You
too.
do? So I have a neighbor who very strongly believes in cardinals, that the cardinals are a symbol.
A lot of people do, yes.
Yeah, and so she has them all over her backyard, and she has them on her door, and so she was kind of explaining that to me. But I think the amazing thing that about the process of losing somebody is that you find meaning where there is comfort, and for me, it is comforting to think that there is another place that she could be in. Be it heaven or we think it's heaven, but whatever that place might be, that it's a glorious place, that it's a good place, that it's a place that she might be happy, and that someday we will be reunited. Yeah, and we'll be reunited. So that is a comforting thought. And I know everybody has their different variations, but whatever that might be, you hold on to that, and that kind of helps you through that process.
I think so too. We have like 1 minute left.
Okay.
And I just want to introduce you again. This is Qazi, and we're talking about Nadia Qazi.
It's Qazi, but
Farah.
I know.
Farah? I'm talking
This
like
is a very common mistake, because people think Farrah Fawcett, right?
That's what I'm thinking. And just because
I know.
you resemble her.
Yeah, right, with the blonde.
With the beautiful hair.
I just need to be blonde, I guess.
So you got 1 minute.
So my 1 minute, I guess, would be to check out the scholarship page and the foundation page, which is the Qazi Family Foundation, which is QAZI, and also to honor Nadia, do good upon the world, whatever that might be. Live compassionately, live kindly, live lovingly. And make sure that when you walk into a room, people remember not necessarily what you say or what you do, but how you made them feel.
And smile.
Yeah, and smile.
Which I have a hard time doing because I had braces for 7 years.
Well, you don't have a hard time now.
Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And it was wonderful that I got to meet her.
Yes.
Even briefly.
Yes.
It was wonderful. And thank your father, too.
I will.
Because your father's done wonderful things for many people.
I will.
I'm a witness to that. And thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time. I'm Karon Gibson. Thank you.
Thank you.